Okay, so we're recording now. This is the FAC meeting for Friday, November the 18th. We're beginning at 2:24 p.m. Because we had the joint meeting with the Board of Regents from 1 until about 2:15. The agenda for today, let me see if I can put it up on screen. I'm hoping that's showing the agenda for today. Who knows what it's showing? Yes, it is. And so we have the minutes of the October FAC meeting, and I'll put those up in a second. I'll have to stop sharing in order to do that and share again. So here we have the minutes. Once again, thanks to Lois for the previous meeting of October the 7th. And I'll just go through that. If there's any changes that people want to make, they should indicate now. If not, we will entertain a motion to approve them and deem them accepted. Is there a motion to approve the minutes? I assume somebody has.
I'll motion, David.
Okay, thank you. And I think we can just simply deem them approved since nobody has made any suggestions for changes. Let me then close that out. And go to the first item on our agenda, which is reports of the chair and vice chair. I'm going to be brief. I think most of us were able, or probably everybody here was able to attend the joint meeting with the Board of Regents. And I think that was a positive step forward. And we can discuss that at greater length at either later in the meeting or when we come to specific items, particularly the question of shared governance. There's nothing that I have to report from the Finance and Infrastructure Committee, which is not going to meet until, I think, December. But we did have the November 4th mini conference, which was quite a success. And many thanks to the organizers of that. I think we had over 150 people attend. And that gave an opportunity to look at the ACME situation, department chairs, and also the situation at Western, about which we'll talk more in the course of this meeting. Kalina, did you have something you wanted to add for vice chair, actually co-chair?
Yeah, very little. I think we haven't had an academic and student affairs meeting since our last meeting, and what we have had is an update from the system about the proposed shared governance model, which has been modified to some degree based on supposedly the input from the Senate. I did circulate to the group the one of the many resolutions that went through shared governance bodies at the colleges, requesting some meaningful change to sort of keep a pathway of all faculty in charge of curriculum. I would say that the response to that is minimal at best, but I think it's better that we talk about it in the shared governance discussion, because I think there are a lot of people here who have a lot more that they can contribute to that conversation. So that's all I really have to say.
Well, then let's move right on to shared governance, beginning at the community colleges. Galina, continue.
I'd actually really prefer to kick it to somebody else. I mean, Ron, Fran, or someone else who can really address this. I suppose I could start by sharing my screen, though, so that you could see an example of one of the resolutions that was sent, and that was supposed to have some influence in this modification to the proposed shared governance model. So let me start with that, and then hopefully someone else will jump in. Do not judge the number of tabs that are open on my screen, please. Here it is. Is everyone seeing that?
Yep.
Okay, so this is the body of a resolution. It has gone through several colleges right now. Does anyone know the exact count?
I think six have approved it.
Okay, so 6
Then
colleges.
one passed one that was in direct contradiction to it. And then
That's
two others passed some modification that really did not address what's in it.
Okay. All right, so it is asking for, so I'll read the results. The representative shared governance body of Capital Community College calls on Dr. Madugo to recognize that input and feedback should only be regarded as faculty and staff input if they're conveyed through a legitimate governance process, and that the Capital Community College Senate will engage in the legitimate shared governance model below campus-based shared governance flowchart, which maintains meaningful cultural and historically based local shared governance. And then I will scroll down to the general model that was proposed. So it goes from statewide discipline councils or local department chairs or program coordinators, senates. And I'll just scroll through it quickly because I think that there's more to say about the structure. I'll just leave it at that. Okay. Would anyone else who's involved in sort of putting forward these resolutions, passing them, advocating for them, want to talk about, the resolution and then the extent to which the new proposal has actually responded to it?
Sure, Queen. I'll talk about that. I created the alternative proposal for shared governance, and the reason I did that is because the model that was created, the Curriculum Congress model, okay, is a committee of 33 people who at most I think two people per college, and it leaves the campuses bereft of conversation over curricular changes. So for instance, a science course could go through a modification process, and the nursing faculty who depend on that course for prerequisites or for their programs would have no idea what the science faculty were doing, because it's the design that was created for the Connecticut State Community College is basically a siloed. It's a department-based model which creates silos around disciplines, and genuine shared governance to me has always been interdisciplinary, has been faculty from across the curricular map coming together to make decisions about what's best for the college and what's best for the students. And I did not see that in the shared governance model that was put out for Connecticut State Community College. So, and I also thought it was overly complex. When I was an associate dean, my president told me that the best way to ensure that faculty don't do anything that you don't want them to do is to create a committee that's larger than 15, because it's nearly impossible to get anything passed and done in a committee that large. So, so I saw that 33 and I said, well, wow, that's exactly what it appears that they're doing here. And so I tried to simplify it. And I also think our shared, all of our 12 colleges have a variety of shared governance systems. And I want to respect that the history that goes behind those systems. I know at Naugatuck Valley, ours are led by very, very fine and knowledgeable leaders, and I respect their work, and I respect the work of our Senate, and I respect the work of our curriculum committee, and so on. And I feel as though they should have a role in the future, rather than as our CEO has done. She's reduced release time and other compensation time down to one hour for people on the curriculum committee, because she said that there's nothing left for them to do because all that work has moved to the system level. So I came up with a plan that maintains all the shared governance bodies, that they would consider and they would provide feedback on any proposals that came to them, and then their leadership would get together to negotiate the final format of any proposals or modifications that are made. And they would do so with extensive deliberation with their local shared governance bodies. When the system responded to this plan and to the resolutions, with the provost having a webinar, and at the webinar, they said that they had listened to what we had asked for, and their response was that they would send that departments at the campus level would be allowed to provide feedback. To me, that doesn't address the silo problem. It doesn't address the cultural problem, because again, we'll only be talking to people within our departments. We won't be talking to any faculty outside of our departments. And so I had an issue with that response, that it should go through department chairs rather than through an actual shared governance body. And so we brought together the shared governance leaders at the colleges. We called for a meeting, and I think 6 of them have decided that they would like to request a meeting with President Maduco to have a conversation about their concerns for this model. And I will stop talking. Looks like there's a call-in user that is has a mic that's live.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm trying to see if I'll try and mute that.
So does anyone else want to weigh in on this issue? And further, is there a role for FAC at this point? Matthew? Oh, and Andre?
So HCC voted on this measure at the College Senate. I want to say 2 weeks ago. It might have been early November. But anyways, we approved a version of the statement that Kalina, you put up, and there was discussion about that. Then we attended the webinar last week. And then the College Senate met this week and put together a response to submit to I forget what they put up. They put up, I think, a link at the end of that presentation last week, and our College Senate made a resolution and put up a response. The issue was we only had a week to get a response to that body. And our College Senate meeting was only an hour long. We had a community meeting afterwards, so it was a little rushed. But the gist of it was to recommend that there's some campus body designated in curricular issues that remains an active presence in the curricular process. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if anybody knows what's going to happen with the feedback that's being sent to that group. I'd be interested to hear if anybody knows what's being planned with that. But anyways, that's what happened at our college.
Thanks. Andre? You're muted, Andre. Or actually, you're not muted, but we can't hear you.
Sometimes that happens if you're in 2 meetings. So I don't know, Andre, did you leave the other meeting?
Yeah, the other meeting was ended.
Yeah.
So it may be that, I'm not sure, because on my end, his mic seems to be on.
I know that WebEx doesn't allow you to have 2 meetings open at the same time.
Naturally.
Try to log out and log back in.
But in the meantime, let me just make a comment. We've talked a lot about the over centralization and delocalization inherent in students first, and this is a good example of it. I mean, curriculum is bottom up. It's a faculty that control curriculum, pedagogy, including the mode of delivery. And I think this resolution asserts that in a way appropriate to the community college system, or one community college, as the case may be. I don't know if we want to move this as a resolution for the FAC to adopt. Or leave it just as an information matter.
I mean,
That's a
if
question.
FAC wants to endorse it, I would move to have it endorsed, if that's what people agree upon.
Fran?
Yeah, I'm a retired member, but I would certainly encourage that. I think it strengthens our hand a little and it shows solidarity also with our four-year colleagues. We discussed this at our governance body yesterday, and people have grave concerns about this model for the reasons Ron articulated, I think, very, very well. The siloing, we're being herded into different pens. We're never going to talk to each other. And those discussions have to happen early in the process. If the only time faculty across disciplines and programs are talking is when a proposal gets to the curriculum congress, that's a recipe for a disaster. That's far too late for those discussions to take place.
Could I? Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, go ahead, Andre.
Fantastic. Okay. Yeah. This proposal, the modified proposal from whatever the system, is set up in such a way that in fact we're not going to get any proposals through from the campus. The only proposals that will go through are the ones that originate in Hartford. And all we're going to the only role we will have is by department to just comment, and that's it. So the whole thing is, total whatever. It's crap. Okay. The thing is that I think I heard that at the meeting, the joint meeting we had, I heard the chairman talk about how important it is for faculty to be doing all this curriculum development and all this wonderful stuff. It's all about the faculty. Well, hell, this system is set up to make sure that we have absolutely no role in this, that we don't have any, so we need to, indeed, we need to have a response to this that says, sorry, but this is nowhere near good enough as a fix, because indeed, as you guys are saying, we need to have that discussion, curriculum discussion at the campus level, so that indeed people, I've been doing curriculum development and, well, what's it been now? 25 years or something like that. The point is that, you need to make sure that people that, you have a proposal that affects several different departments, you want to make sure that they get a chance to talk about the damn thing, okay? So this is, again, it's an abortion of a proposal that they have. And I don't know how else to, I mean, I would put it in very strong words, but maybe somebody else can draft something nicer. Thanks. Yeah, that's enough.
Ron, have you moved it as a motion?
Sure, I'll move that we support, we endorse the resolution calling for meaningful shared governance at the campus and local level for the colleges under the Connecticut State Community College, whatever it is, system. I don't even know if you call it a system since it's one college now.
Yeah, I second that.
Good. Discussion? Any further discussion? I mean, what we're doing is endorsing. We're not looking at each of the details of the particular resolution that was dealt with. We're endorsing it in principle, particularly to reassert, as I think Andre and Rona pointed out, local input, which is not just an accessory, but is essential, and should be, in fact, initiating in many cases curriculum changes. So are there any further comments?
No.
if not on this one, I can still do a voice vote, I think. Those who are in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, nay. All right, well, by voice vote, it carries. Thank you. Do we have other matters arising from shared governance at the community college level before we go on to the universities?
A million, but nothing new.
Well, can I just raise one point about the joint meeting? I don't think Colleen's. I'm sorry.
Kalina.
Kalina, right? I'm sorry. Question was answered. I mean, all I heard was just a lot of mumbling about a whole bunch of other stuff that got nothing to do with the question. I mean, the question is, why is it that we've got management and administration growing by leaps and bounds, and faculty are in fact declining? And I didn't hear an answer. Did you?
Andre, I heard the answer was that essentially Cheng said it was accidental, and therefore a product of incompetence. I assume.
Well, thank you.
So, I mean, that's all I could think of. If it's not intentional, if it's not part of a strategic plan, then it's basically building a college on improvisation.
Yeah, and to add further to Ron's point, this is what the previous administration, and I do make a distinction between previous administration and current administration.
Which previous?
I'm talking about Ojakian
Oh.
and the all the machinations that went on between 2017 and 2020, 2021. I think we need to be open to improvements, and I think that we've taken a step forward in doing that. This proposal on shared governance with respect to curriculum, that's important, and we really need to insist upon, within shared governance, faculty control of curriculum and pedagogy, including what I always want to add, the mode of delivery, because there is a move, and this is, there's things that are going on at the system office which are distinct from things going on at the Board of Regents. The Board of Regents has a role mainly to approve resolutions and sort of legalize proposals. But at the system office, there is a tendency to want to control what faculty are doing. And that's where the problem arises, and where I think we have to, as it were, educate members of the board so that they properly understand, and I think they're beginning to understand, the role of faculty in this particular area of curriculum and pedagogy, including online courses, hybrid courses, high flex courses, in-person courses, and so forth. So we're moving forward on this. I think that President Cheng did make a good comment when he said, management can't do it. Faculty and also as well staff have to do the changes and pilot the programs that are going to deliver the content to students, and that's I think that's correct. That said, we can, if you don't have anything further, Kalina, we can go on to the situation at the universities, where I think just me and Mark Jackson. So I'm going to call upon Mark Jackson at a point, because we're having a big discussion at my university precisely on shared governance. And I know that at Eastern, there was also a significant discussion on shared governance, including a Senate resolution to improve shared governance in ways similar to what we're discussing at Central Connecticut State University, where I'll give just two examples of situations that have arisen which have posed a problem. To the surprise of many, we found out that the graduate school had been more or less abolished, or at any rate, there was no longer a dean of graduate studies. This was a surprise to many faculty who may not have noticed what had happened over the summer or some preceding time during the COVID pandemic. Also, we had a system whereby, to encourage and to require students to see faculty for advising in their major in particular, that the faculty would have the so-called PIN number. The student required that in order to sign up for their courses for the following term. That was eliminated for the fall term, and and never reinstated for the spring term, to the dismay of rather many, because of course there are now a considerable number of students who are simply not getting proper advising. So those were issues that came up. We did have a faculty senate resolution supported both by the president of the union and, well, actually it was a joint statement between the president of the AUP union and the university president, Dr. Toro, to insist upon restoring shared governance in order to address issues such as the status of the graduate studies, the need for PINs for advising. So that's just, I think, the tip of the iceberg, because we've had quite a situation of coming and going of dean level appointees, including faculty who have acted on interim basis as deans. And there's something definitely going wrong in terms of the meshing of the gears between senior administration, the level of deans, who are, after all, the intermediaries between department chairs and senior administration, and the local departments themselves. So it's a common issue, and I think we need to spend some time in perhaps upcoming meetings trying to better understand what shared governance is. And it just strikes me that it's not equally divided. I mean, you can think of it as two circles that intersect. In some cases, the faculty, and maybe the case also for staff, that part of the circle is predominant. And there is just a secondary role for administration. For example, in curriculum, faculty should be developing it. The senior administration has to give, final sanction in terms of also providing the appropriate funding. If we look at budget, that is largely the purview of senior administration. But we do expect that they will consult with us, right? And that they'll take into account what we have to say. So their part of the circle is bigger there. For strategic planning, perhaps it's jointly, especially in terms of not just, the 101 specific items, but the general priorities for the next, say, 2, 3, perhaps even 5 years. That said, Mark, do you want to add something?
Thanks, David. You covered most of it. I'll add a little bit of, texture to that. For the graduate school, it's a very interesting thing, is actually those of us that have, extensive graduate programs, this has been going on for a year, because the people that were in the graduate school were just systematically assigned to do positions in the registrar's office. And there has really been no one in the graduate school since last spring. And then this is very confusing when this was brought to the faculty senate, because it was pointed out I asked specifically the question of whether the graduate studies committee was ever brought into the discussions, because there's just massive confusion about the process of, so who approves graduate theses? Who is doing, interacting with the students? Who is doing the paperwork? And what they ended up doing was just creating a email address called gradstudies@CCSU. And if you send something to it, eventually someone will get back to you after a few weeks. Emails sent to the graduate dean that was moved into a new vice president position just went unanswered for months and months and months. And when this was brought out, it was mentioned that, well, in middle of May, we did send a message to the grad studies committee to start discussing this. But of course, it was after the semester was over. And by the time they had their next meeting in September, everything had already been done. And so I was asking this in the Senate at that point. The university president jumped online and claimed that she had no idea that any of these changes had taken place. That this was supposedly just a model for a potential new school or a new way of doing graduate studies, and that yeah, essentially that she was completely unaware of this organizational change and asked for everything to be reverted back to where it was before, to the incredulous looks of the faculty senate, because there is no graduate dean, there is no graduate office, there is no administrative support there. Everything's already been done. So that was a very strange phenomena. At the same time, we were discussing, as David said, about the registration pins, and the president of the university took actually full responsibility for that, saying that it was done in August to eliminate roadblocks to registration. The explanation was those students that had not yet registered, because faculty were not responding to requests for advising in August before the semester started, it would make it easier for those last remaining students to become registered, but of course they would be registering without being advised. She then said that, however, she intended that to be only for that last minute registration for the fall, but her message was misunderstood by the registrar's office, so that it was abolished for all future registrations. But by the time that was ever noted, it was already registration time and kind of too hard to go back. That's had a real impact, because I've got 45 students that are my advisees. Registration is almost done, and I've only talked to 15 of them. I have no communication with them, and I've been begging for them to come in for advising. In fact, the student government actually did a one question poll, apparently, but just asking students, do you want advising pins? And by a vast majority, they just said, no, we don't want pins. But there was also no explanation of why pins exist and how that can help it. Because at the same token, the student said, oh yeah, our advising is not very good. But just no one ever discussed this with our advising committee. They were never brought in on this. But again, it was claimed to have just been a miscommunication. And the president has promised to actually consult with the faculty committees from this point forward, which is the joint statement that David is referring to, which actually, regretfully, the faculty senate really hasn't made a voice in this yet. It's really been handled by AAUP. And the statement was, I found kind of humorous, because it was nothing more than the university president just saying that from this point forward, she would actually do what she was supposed to have been doing all along. There was nothing new there. It was just simply saying, I will actually consult with the faculty senate in the future. So.
Thanks, Mark.
Yeah.
By the way, Mark is my alternate from CCSU, and doing a fine duty today. Yeah, I think it shows the ever necessary vigilance with respect to shared governance, particularly for the structures at the universities at the Senate level. Of course, when we look now to the community colleges and we're not sure exactly what the structures are, that becomes even more complicated.
So David, can I just say one more thing?
Sure, go ahead.
In talking, because I was the former Senate president too, and one thing I noticed being Senate president was how many major decisions by the university kept being pushed off to the summer. And as Senate president, I was often brought in to, called by the university president in an obvious attempt to try to make me make a decision on my own without any committee decision. And I was very good at listening to what the president said and then stating, okay, thank you. I'll bring this to one of the committees, the appropriate committee, when the time comes. And we refuse to make those one-person decisions over the
Mm.
summer. The president has repeatedly mentioned the frustration with how slowly faculty does their work. And that has been an obvious issue of, trying to get things done through committees. But I think that it's been a very, it's a plan to try to move things to the summer like the graduate school so that it's just put in place without the committee support. So one thing I've talked to the current Senate president about is one of the issues we have is that really we don't have a steering committee for the Senate that works over the summer because they're not elected until the fall, whereas the Senate president is elected in the spring. And one of the things is to try to have maybe the election of the steering committee for the Senate, so that at least that there would be a group of 5 or 6 people over the summer that will kind of be responsible for shepherding, requests for major changes and things like that, and trying to help the Senate president out. So that's the newest things I know, David.
Good, thank you. I think we'll have next meeting a fuller report on what's going on at Eastern. Perhaps it's time to switch over to the question of what's happening at Western. And that's something, Lois, go ahead.
I'm just going to kind of ask a question here. I'm hearing all kinds of issues, not only at the community colleges, but now at the state universities as well. And before we get into the Western situation, we all know how bad that is. And we're hearing about you guys. Just let me throw this out there as a question. Is it time perhaps for the state universities to be filing complaints with NECHI about stuff like this? I mean, WestCon has been pretty much told by system office and the Board of Regents that they're going to kind of hang them out to dry and not do anything. And unless that's changed, it would seem to me that the Board of Regents and system office are complicit in what happened at WestCon because they're supposed to be the overseers. So shouldn't WestCon be, among other things, considering writing something to NECHI about this kind of a thing? And shouldn't Central be thinking about writing something to NECHI about the disappearance of their grad school and without really knowing without being involved in what was happening? And this just seemed to be growing and growing and growing. And it spilled over now into the state universities. We're hearing it. I think, I don't know, that's just something I'm going to throw out there.
Kalina and then Mark.
To say I agree that I'm sure NECHI should be informed, but I think we've been increasingly disappointed by NECHI's response. And I think I shared with you all the issue of academe on like finance in higher ed, but highly related to that finance issue, what you see going along with it is the governance issue. And I think part of what's going on is how widespread this is, not just in our system, but nationally. The kinds of violations to shared governance that you see like everywhere are insane. So I'm thinking the bar is a lot higher now to even get the attention of accrediting agencies. And while again, it has to be documented, I don't know that there is going to ever be pressure from outside when it's this widespread.
Mark?
Yeah, funny you mentioned that because
Whoops, you just cut out, Mark.
oh, I hit the wrong button. Sorry. Yeah, funny you mentioned that because my activities today was I'm on the subcommittee. This is our 5-year NECHI interim report, and I've actually been assigned to internal governance part 3. me and the Senate president. And also the administrator that was assigned to redo the graduate school
Mm.
when he came on. And I was fully expecting to be kicked off that committee after so I made several comments on our listserv and in the faculty senate, but nope, I'm writing that section right now. But that is there's always a dilemma in the Nietzsche reports of how much dirty laundry you share. And so this is just the draft right now. I'm basically writing, the description, but for, the more analysis type thing, we're going to be taking that to an open forum. We're putting this together, and then that's going to be a good question. I don't know exactly where our university is going to go as far as how far we go into the details of this for the interim report.
Lois?
Um, I would suggest that this not be part of the report itself. I mean, I wrote our fifth year report, and there were some things that I had put in there that were kind of taken out by management. And but you can put in a separate report written by faculty on this, claiming, just writing your side of what's going on and why, and the problems that you have with it. And what I'm thinking is that if this starts to come from areas outside the community colleges, because what they've gotten so far is strictly about the community colleges. But if they start getting stuff from outside the community colleges as well, I think obviously it broadens the issue for them and what they need to look at. And maybe it gets them to think a little bit more deeply about, hey, what's going on here? This is now gone beyond the community colleges. We're getting these reports from the state universities, from the different state universities about different issues there. This seems to be broader than the consolidation itself of the community colleges, which in itself could be a problem if we put this all together. That was why I was suggesting that.
Thanks, Lois. Other comments? If not, let's pass on to the situation at Western. Wynn, I think that you're here for that.
I suppose that's what I'm here for. So, as all of you know, I think, our new president has called for the termination of the degrees in meteorology, anthropology, sociology, which is already a combined degree, economics, and our general social science major, and called for a parking of our political science major, which means that no new students could be admitted to that. The social sciences majors alone, excluding meteorology for the moment, that consists of just under 100 students. Not counting, of course, that this is the social sciences department is a service department that has a lot of non-majors, even in their upper level courses, because they serve the business school, the nursing program, the social work program, and so on. The particular article in the contract that the president is using to do so is the article on program termination. There's no anticipation that he is going to call for the removal of full-time faculty, and as such, there's a 60-day period of discussion with the curriculum committee, with the budget committee, and with the Senate. But after that 60-day period, the president, merely consulting whatever it is that those bodies have said, in conjunction with the Board of Regents, gets to make the decision about this. So, in my opinion, that means, in effect, that the absent, extraordinary outside political pressure, there really is no mechanism to stop them from doing what they're doing. It also means that the arguments in favor of this become somewhat nonsensical, because you're sort of eliminating um, programs that house 100 majors, and presumably many of those students having their major eliminated will go elsewhere with their tuition dollars. In the meantime, you're saving about $200,000 in adjunct and part-time salary, which is what they're going after, but that doesn't seem like any substantial savings. In fact, it looks like if they're not going to eliminate any full-time faculty, it's difficult to see how it wouldn't cost a great deal of money. So the situation now is that there's going to be a meeting of the University Planning and Budget Committee next week. We're in the middle of this 60-day clock. There's going to be an emergency curriculum committee meeting and Senate meeting in early December, and then this 60-day consultation period will end on December 13th, after which the president will be able to make a decision. There was this week, I understand, a 3-hour-long meeting between the president and the social sciences department, which did sort of lead to some promising discussion with regard to possible new interdisciplinary majors, like a revamping of the global studies major, or the elevation of it from a minor to a major, I guess. But that was not coupled with with taking any of these things off the table. So there may be something for these faculty to do after these programs are eliminated on this basis. I mean, in my opinion, when you look at the universities in our region that lack programs in economics or political science or anthropology, sociology, what you see are either failing universities, or basically purely technical colleges. When you look at the programs of state universities in our neighboring states, we find that virtually every university has programs in these areas. So, in my opinion, removing these would lead to our not being regarded as a serious university, and to the continued decline in our enrollments amongst students who look at a university basically missing more than half of its social science programs, and I don't think they'll see a university that they find attractive. So that's what I know about the situation.
Yeah, it is quite dramatic. Ratua did a presentation at the mini conference on November the 4th, and you could see how stressing and how stressful this kind of situation is. And I'll make just a couple of comments. One, I've noticed that when an institution is in financial difficulty, there is a tendency to pick some one or several programs of minor economic significance as sort of the 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 objects of cancellation, if you wish, to somehow show that they're looking after this in a serious way. Now, recall that for Western, there's something like 73 positions that have been frozen for a savings of something like $11.5 million. That was the last information we had at the Finance and Infrastructure Committee. And Wynn points out that eliminating all of the part-time faculty teaching intro-level courses and removing the full-time faculty from upper division courses and putting them to do exclusively 100 and 200 level classes, it's not going to save much more than several $100,000. Quite a small savings relative. So it becomes symbolic, and perhaps is related to some internal dynamics of the dean and the provost, of which I'm not aware. That said, we did have a resolution at the CCSU Senate in support of the faculty at and I'll share it if I can find it. Well, for the moment, I can't find it. But in it, what we said was we support the social science faculty at Western in their effort to protect and promote needed majors, minors, and upper division courses in their disciplines. We reiterate our opposition to a single criterion for low enrollment classes or programs independent of national statistics on small, medium, and large departments. And that's I think it's a number 10 which is used, that has to be the minimum number of graduates averaging over a 3-year period. And of course, for departments which are small nationwide, that's going to be probably impossible to meet. And for large departments like psychology, that's going to be easy to meet. So it really doesn't demonstrate anything. We added that we reject the use of solely quantitative factors in determining program persistence, to the exclusion of qualitative considerations of course content, and the spirit of the university as offering the full complement of liberal arts and sciences programs. And that we reaffirm the role of faculty control of curriculum and pedagogy, and the role of shared governance in university decision making. So I did send that along to Rotua, and I don't know if other university senates, I know that it's been discussed among the 4 presidents of the university senates. Let me go on to others. Kalina?
Yeah, I mean, what's striking to me, right, is that, as Rotua pointed out, as Wim pointed out, this neither solves the financial problem that prompted this review, nor does it address the supposed low completer. Like, none of the justifications provided for this stand. It doesn't seem to be solving any problem. And I think that echoes back to the question of, is our reduction in faculty and increase in managers by design or by accident? And if it continues for over a decade, at what point do you start wondering, is our leadership simply inept, or is it in fact by design? And either one of those answers, whichever one it is alarming, right? Because we're either failing very, very, very hard, or we are traveling down a path that is not transparent to us, right? And I mean, that's really all I have to say, but it really changes the context of the fight, and as Rotua points out, it really weakens faculty in the process, the role of faculty generally.
I'll just add that if the low completer metric were the only metric used, then at WestCon, this would lead to the elimination not just of these majors, but also of the chemistry major, the mathematics major, the Spanish major, the history major, and the English major. And then I think we would really have to ask, how are we calling this a university? If basically, we have eliminated then, or we have a justification for eliminating basically the core disciplines that universities have been founded on for 120 years.
I put up briefly the resolution that was adopted at the CCSU Senate. I don't know if we want to look at that in greater detail, or just come back to this for our next meeting. But I've seen this before. When I first came to Connecticut, I was a Yale visiting fellow for 1 year, and I wanted to go into the philosophy department, which, however, was under trusteeship and fighting out some academic quarrel among its members. So I opted instead for the history of science, because that's the area I do, history and philosophy of science. And it turned out that had been eliminated in the budget crisis of 1991-92, when even Yale had eliminated astronomy, I think, and history of science. Now, the history of science people regrouped and became the history of medicine group in the medical library. So that was actually quite an interesting time that I spent there. I've seen at Skidmore College, which overran its budget on a fine arts building, they eliminated University Without Walls, which had been a significant contributor to allow especially folks in the Caribbean to upgrade their associate's degrees to undergraduate degrees in teaching. And it was simply sacrificed in order to show to the board or to the president that they were doing something. And it strikes me that the situation at Western is, symbolic in the same way and counter, as Wynn pointed out, to the nature of the university as offering the full scope of majors and minors, taking into account, of course, certain particularities of how that might be expressed. Wynn, is there, Andre, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just curious, in terms of the savings that they are trying to get, is it primarily through getting rid of some adjunct faculty? Is that well, if that is, then perhaps there's a mistake that's being made, and I've seen it done before, of talking about average cost as opposed to marginal cost. I mean, if you're talking about, a class that's low enrolled, the question should be asked whether the tuition that's collected is enough to pay the adjunct for that particular course. And usually it is. I mean, unless it's like two people. So I just wonder about that, because I've seen administrators confuse, the very, very, something that's fundamental in economics, difference between marginal cost and average cost.
Yes, and the fact that they're eliminating the economics major is the irony of this. And the economics faculty whose major is being eliminated has attempted to point this out. Yeah, the justification that the overt justification is precisely this, that because we have these low enrolled majors, that there's a heavy use of adjunct faculty in teaching 100 level courses in sociology and economics and so forth. Of course, in reality, we're only talking about maybe 7 or 8 part-time faculty members, right? It's not an extent, and as we all know, they're woefully underpaid. So, there is, I think, a more covert plan that is beginning to come out that seems that the provost has ideas about placing the economics faculty in the business school, placing the faculty in the social work department, and so on, to basically take the arts and sciences school and redirect them to the professional schools. Now, of course, that such a decision would go back to the points about faculty control over the curriculum that have been raised earlier in this meeting.
Andre?
Yeah, actually, that sort of harkens back to the discussion that we had earlier in the joint meeting, the emphasis on the workforce development, where they're looking to try to redirect us towards indeed just training people as opposed to educating them. The one thing that, I'm from my experience and knowledge, not only in academia but also in management, the most important, let's put it another way, okay, it is extremely important. Liberal arts are extremely important for business, okay, for workforce training, especially if you're looking for people that are going to go all the way to the top. Because you can be you can be an accountant, you can be a finance guy or person. That's all well and good, but if you want to advance farther, then you have to have liberal arts education and background that can help you understand society in general and the place of business in it. So if you look at the CEOs, many don't have necessary degrees in some specific skill set, but rather liberal arts. So.
Thanks, Andre. Lois? You're not connected, Lois.
I'm going to, I think, respond to Kalina a bit about whether or not this is intentional or not intentional about the reductions in faculty and staff along here. I have numbers for Norwalk, for example, from fiscal year 15, to fiscal year 19, we dropped from 103 full-time faculty to 85 full-time faculty. We dropped from 124 full-time staff to 107 full-time staff. And in the February substantive change report they submitted to NETCHI, they've got fiscal year 22 estimated and projected fiscal year 23. And for both faculty and staff at Norwalk, they've got a breakdown of every college and university. But for Norwalk, they have a breakdown of full-time faculty at 72 and full-time staff at 72. So it seems to me this is a directed reduction in staff. It's not accidental. That's my comment.
Thanks. Do we have further comments? Well, so the date is December, beginning of December for the 60-day period to end?
The 60-day period ends on December the 13th, and there will be University Planning and Budget Committee, Curriculum Committee, and Senate meetings prior to that 60-day window's expiration. And I do believe I'm not in the social sciences department, so I'm not clear on the details, but I believe that there is a follow-up meeting between the dean, provost, and president, and the co-chairs of the social sciences department, perhaps next week.
Okay, so what we can do, I think, is our next faculty advisory meeting is, I'm just looking now, December the 2nd.
Yeah.
That would be before. But if we could have a report on that from you or Rotua, I think we could formulate a resolution that we would like to put forward as well to the following meeting of the Board of Regents. They are meeting December the 15th. So that would be just 2 days after the 60-day period, right? And we can certainly bring that up as well. And of course, then whatever decision has been made by the president, that would have to go, I think, to the Academic and Student Affairs Committee. Am I right, Kalina? It would be program cancellation or modification, substantial modification. So we can also address that if we
morning of December the 2nd.
Okay. So that probably would go to the 2023 meeting of the ASA, because your meeting of the ASA is before that.
But I'm sure that this Western decision will come to the board before that.
Yeah. Okay, so let's check that and continue it as an item for our agenda, and make sure we're aware of all the dates at which various committees and both of the board and of the board itself are meeting relative to the 60-day period. Are there other comments about the situation at Western? Thank you very much, Wynn. That was really helpful. Is there other business that we want to bring forward? If not, we're at the point of the next meeting announcement, which is for December the 2nd. So it's an early meeting. It's only a few weeks from now. I'm always curious as to why we put the meetings at the beginning of the month, but I realize, I guess, for December, term is ending fairly soon thereafter. So we'll see you again then. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll move, David.
Ronald? Okay, thank you, Ron. Without objection, as they say in the halls of Congress, we're adjourned. And I'm going to stop the recording now.